maybe from 18th to first in 4 laps, but you will see great racing. It's been great so far in practice and all that stuff in the bud.
On February 18, 2001, fans at Daytona International Speedway were filled with joy and excitement. It was the day of the Daytona 500, one of NASCAR's biggest races. Over 150,000 fans filled the stands, and millions more watched from home. The sun was shining, the engines were roaring, and everything felt perfect. For Dale Earnhardt, a racing legend known as the Intimidator, this race was supposed to be just another chapter in his long and successful career. Dale had been racing for over 2 decades, with 76 wins and 7 championships. People loved his tough style, his black No. 3 Chevrolet, and the fearless way he drove. But what no one knew was that this day would end in tragedy. What seemed like an ordinary race would turn into one of the most shocking and heartbreaking moments in sports history. Dale had been through a lot in his life before this day. In the late 1990s, he had suffered serious injuries in other races. At Talladega, he broke his collarbone. In another crash in Atlanta, he fractured a neck bone. These injuries were painful, and they made it hard for him to drive. Sometimes, he even drove with one hand, holding the steering wheel tightly as he fought through the pain. Many thought Dale might retire soon. He was getting older, and his body had taken a beating, but Dale wasn't ready to give up. With the support of his team owner and close friend, Richard Childress, he found his spark again. In 2000, he started racing better and stronger. He had a fire in his heart and was ready to compete again at the top level. By the time the 2001 season arrived, Dale was confident, smiling, and ready to take on the Daytona 500. Just 2 days before the race, something strange happened. Dale sat down for an interview with Darrell Waltrip, another racing legend. Usually, Dale was calm and quiet before a race. But during the interview, he stood up, raised his arms, and shouted, "I'm a lucky man. I've got it all." He talked about how happy he was with his family, his marriage, and his racing team. Friends watching this later said it felt like a goodbye. Then, the night before the race, during a quiet meeting with fellow driver Terry Labonte, Dale made another odd comment. As they discussed future plans, he said, "That's if I make it that far." Everyone laughed, thinking it was his dark humor. But Dale didn't laugh with them. He stayed quiet. Even Dale Earnhardt Jr., his son, felt something was different. On the morning of the race, his father came up to him and said, "We're going to do this together." It was a sweet and emotional moment between father and son, one that Dale Jr. would remember forever. The race began with high hopes. The atmosphere was thrilling. It wasn't just another race, it was also the first Daytona 500 being broadcast by Fox Sports under a huge new TV deal. NASCAR was growing fast, and this race was a big moment for the sport. Dale was doing great. He drove like a true champion, moving up to the front several times. The crowd cheered loudly each time he took the lead. Everything was going well, and no one could have guessed what would happen next. But behind the smiles and speed, danger was building. Warnings had been ignored. A hidden storm was coming, and it would soon change everything in the world of racing. While fans were cheering and enjoying the race, a much more serious conversation was happening behind closed doors. In the year before Dale Earnhardt's death, NASCAR had lost 3 drivers to the same type of deadly injury, a basilar skull fracture. This injury happens when a driver's head snaps forward too hard during a crash. It's hard to survive, and often happens suddenly. Experts were worried. They wanted to make racing safer. A new safety device had been introduced. It was called the Hunts device, short for head and neck support. This device was made from strong material and designed to stop a driver's head from moving too far during a crash. It had the power to save lives. But not all drivers liked it. Some drivers, including Dale Earnhardt, didn't trust the Hans device. They said it was uncomfortable, too tight around the neck, and made it harder to move. Dale called it a damn nuisance and refused to wear it. He believed it took away his freedom and instincts on the track. Even when NASCAR held a special safety meeting at Daytona to talk about the Hans device, Dale didn't attend. Other drivers listened to the experts, but Dale stayed in his garage. On the day of the race, only 5 out of 43 drivers wore the Hans device. One of those 5 was Kyle Petty, whose own son, Adam Petty, had died from a basilar skull fracture just the year before. It was a sad and painful decision for Kyle, one he made to honor his son and protect himself. If only more drivers had taken the same step, history might have been different. As the Daytona 500 continued, the race became one of the most exciting in years. There were more than 49 lead changes. Drivers pushed their limits. Cars went wheel to wheel, and Dale Earnhardt was right in the middle of the action. Then, with just 25 laps to go, a huge crash happened. Tony Stewart's orange car crashed hard into the wall, flipped through the air, and landed in the grass. From the stands and on TV, it looked like no one could survive. But Stewart got out alive, bruised but breathing. His helmet had hit the steering wheel so hard that it bent the metal. Dale Earnhardt watched the crash happen and immediately got on the radio. He told his team owner, Richard, "They're going to have to do something about these cars, or they're going to get somebody killed." These were powerful words, and they would become hauntingly true just minutes later. The race restarted. Fans were still shaking from the massive crash they had just seen. But now, with just a few laps left, the competition became even more intense. Everyone wanted to win, and Dale Earnhardt made a choice that surprised everyone. Instead of trying to win himself, he decided to help his teammate Michael Waltrip and his son Dale Jr. take the top spots. Dale began blocking other drivers so that Michael and Jr. could stay ahead. It was a selfless act. He was acting like a guardian, putting their safety and victory before his own. He even backed off at one point, letting them pass him. Commentators were shocked. This wasn't like Dale. He was known for fighting until the very end. But on this day, his heart was focused on something bigger than a trophy. He wanted to see the people he loved win. He was being a protector. As the race reached its final lap, the energy in the stadium was electric. Michael Waltrip was leading. Dale Earnhardt Jr. was in second, and Dale Earnhardt Sr. was in third, guarding their position. Everyone thought this would be a dream ending, a perfect finish for Dale and his team. But then it happened. As the cars sped through turn 4, Sterling Marlin tried to pass Dale on the inside. At the same time, Ken Schrader came up on the outside. Dale's car was caught in the middle. A slight touch sent his car spinning toward the wall. At a speed of nearly 160 miles per hour, Dale Earnhardt's car crashed head-on into the concrete barrier. It didn't look like the worst crash. There was no fire, no flying debris, no flips. But what the cameras didn't show was the brutal force of the impact. Dale's car slid down the track and came to a stop. Ken Schrader's car had also been involved, and he quickly ran over to check on Dale. When he looked inside the car, he immediately knew something was wrong. He waved for help and backed away, his face filled with worry. As Michael Waltrip crossed the finish line and celebrated his first ever NASCAR win, the joy in the air slowly turned into concern. Dale Earnhardt wasn't moving. He wasn't getting out of his car. Medical teams rushed to the scene and carefully removed him from the vehicle. He was taken to Halifax Medical Center. But at 5:16 p.m., the news came. Dale Earnhardt had died. The cause was a basilar skull fracture, the same injury that had already claimed other drivers, the one that the Hans device was meant to prevent. The racing world stopped. Fans cried. Drivers and team members stood in silence. It was the most painful day in NASCAR's history. The Intimidator was gone. He had spent his final moments not chasing glory, but protecting the people he loved most. Dale Earnhardt's death shocked everyone, and it forced NASCAR to take action. Within months, the Hans device became mandatory. Safer car designs were introduced. Better crash barriers, seatbelts, and helmets were put in place. NASCAR knew it could never bring Dale back, but it could make sure no other family had to suffer the same pain. Dale's final race became a turning point. It taught the sport that safety matters more than anything. His death wasn't in vain. It brought change, progress, and protection to a dangerous sport. Today, Dale Earnhardt's legacy lives on, not just in trophies or memories, but in every driver who straps into a car knowing the sport is safer because of him. His story is one of courage, love, sacrifice, and heartbreak. And it's a reminder that even the strongest heroes have limits, and even legends deserve to be protected. Dale didn't just race for himself. He raced for his son, his friends, and the millions who believed in him. And in his final act, he gave everything for them. He may be gone, but his spirit rides on in every race, in every fan's heart, and in the safer tracks that now carry his name forward. Dale Earnhardt was more than just a race car driver. He was a hero to millions of NASCAR fans, known for his fierce driving style and unshakable courage on the racetrack. On February 18, 2001, Dale entered the Daytona 500 with a mission not to win the race for himself, but to help others. He had a plan to protect his son, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and his close friend Michael Waltrip during the final laps of the race. As the race came to its final 20 laps, Dale was in third place, behind the two men he loved most on that track, his son and his best friend. The whole world watched as he skillfully defended his position, making it almost impossible for anyone to pass him. Every time another driver tried to get close, Dale blocked them with perfect timing. He was determined to keep Junior and Michael out of trouble. The crowd cheered with every move. The commentators were speechless, and fans at home were glued to their screens. Dale was doing something amazing. He wasn't just racing, he was guarding Dot with just one lap to go. Michael Waltrip was leading the race, and Dale Jr. was right behind him. Dale Earnhardt continued to run in third place, keeping the pack of drivers behind him. He was like a shield, blocking every lane, not letting anyone break through. Sterling Marlin was behind Dale and tried to make a move by going low on the track. Ken Schrader was on the outside, trying to do the same. Rusty Wallace and others were all around, waiting for their moment. But Dale kept shutting the door on every opportunity. He was completely focused, moving with speed and control. But then, in a fraction of a second, everything changed. As Marlin tried to slip past on the inside, Dale quickly moved to block him. The two cars touched, just a little. It didn't look like a serious crash at first, but at those high speeds, even the smallest touch can turn into disaster. Dale's car lost balance and slid down toward the inside of the track. For a moment, it looked like he might save it. The car started to straighten out. Fans hoped. Commentators hoped. But then, the worst happened. As Dale's car came back up the track, it moved directly into the path of the fast-approaching cars behind him. Ken Schrader, with no time to stop, slammed into Dale's passenger side. The force of the collision sent both cars shooting up toward the outside wall. In the broadcast booth, Darrell Waltrip was cheering for his brother Michael, just seconds away from his first win. But then he noticed Dale's car spinning, crashing into the wall at full speed. To the millions of people watching at home, the crash didn't look all that bad. No flames, no cars flipping, no explosions. Just a hard hit into the wall, something NASCAR fans had seen many times. But what they didn't realize was that Dale Earnhardt had just taken one of the most dangerous hits in racing history. His car struck the wall at nearly 160 miles per hour at an angle that caused extreme forces. In less than 1 second, his car went from full speed to a sudden stop. The crash caused the front corner of Dale's car to crumple completely. Inside, his body was thrown violently to the side, his seatbelt snapped, his head slammed with massive force. And just like that, NASCAR's biggest legend was fighting for his life. As Dale's car came to a stop on the grassy infield at Daytona, everything seemed calm. There was no smoke, no fire. It didn't look like the kind of crash that takes someone's life. Fans in the stands assumed Dale would get out of the car like he always did, maybe angry, maybe sore, but alive. But something was wrong. Ken Schrader, who had hit Dale's car during the crash, got out of his own car and rushed to Dale's window. When he looked inside, he froze. He later said, "I just knew it wasn't good." Schrader's face turned. Paley didn't see Dale moving. There was no response. Schrader didn't say what he saw inside that car, even after all these years, but what he did next told the whole story. Instead of giving a thumbs up to signal everything was okay, Schrader began waving his arms wildly. He was calling for help fast. The safety crews saw his signal and rushed toward the car. That was the first moment fans started to worry. This wasn't a normal crash. Something bad had happened. Dr. Steve Bohannon was one of the first medical professionals to reach Dale's car. He had been working at Daytona as the emergency doctor for just over a year. He knew right away that this crash was different. Dale was unconscious. Blood was coming from his nose and ears. His body wasn't breathing. The rescue crew didn't wait. They cut the roof off the car to get to him faster. They started CPR on the grass, hoping for a miracle. Even though they knew the chances were low, they refused to give up. Dale Earnhardt was a fighter, and they were going to fight for him too. Meanwhile, just a few hundred yards away, Michael Waltrip was celebrating the biggest win of his life. He had no idea that his friend and teammate was in serious trouble. In victory lane, everyone was smiling and clapping, unaware of the tragedy unfolding nearby. Dale Earnhardt Jr. wasn't celebrating. He felt that something was wrong. He ran toward the infield care center to find out what had happened. On the way, he saw Ken Schrader being treated. Schrader looked heartbroken. When their eyes met, Dale Jr. knew the truth before hearing a word. He rushed to the hospital, praying it wasn't as bad as it looked. But when he saw the medical team working on his father, everything hit him at once. Years later, he described the sound he made as something he couldn't explain. It was the sound of pain, fear, and complete heartbreak. At Halifax Medical Center, the doctors and nurses did everything they could. They pumped blood, performed x-rays, and tried to restart Dale's heart. A team of 15 medical experts worked, together in silence and urgency. But deep down, they knew they were losing him. In that crowded trauma room stood a quiet figure, Teresa Earnhardt, Dale's wife. She didn't cry or scream. She stood still, watching the love of her life being treated. When a technician reached for Dale's wedding ring to remove it, Teresa simply said, "No." That one word said more than 1,000 tears could. Dr. Bohannon told the technician to respect her wish. That moment stayed with him forever. Eventually, the doctors had to accept the truth. Dale Earnhardt was gone. The official report confirmed the cause of death, a basal skull fracture. This type of injury happens when the base of the skull is broken from a violent force. It's quick, and it's almost always fatal. Dale also had other injuries: broken ribs, a cracked sternum, and a broken ankle. But it was the head injury that ended his life. When they examined the inside of the car, they found blood on nearly every surface. It was a chilling reminder that the crash had lasted only a second, but the damage it caused was total. The news of Dale Earnhardt's death spread fast. Fans were shocked. Broadcasters were emotional. Drivers and crew members couldn't believe it. One of the greatest racers of all time was gone, and it didn't feel real. For days after the crash, fans left flowers, signs, and handwritten letters outside Dale's shop and at the racetrack. Strangers hugged each other in tears. Race car drivers wore black armbands. Dale had become more than a sports figure. He was a symbol of courage, strength, and never giving up. Even people who didn't watch racing knew his name. He was the intimidator, the man in black, the driver who never backed down. His number 3 became a symbol of pride and sorrow. But beyond all the fame and speed, Dale Earnhardt was a father, a husband, and a friend. And now, all those who loved him had to live with the pain of losing him too soon. Michael Waltrip, who had just won his first race, later said it was the happiest and saddest day of his life. He celebrated while his teammate died. The joy of victory turned into a nightmare. Dale Earnhardt Jr. had to carry on without his father. The world watched as he returned to racing, carrying the weight of the number 3 on his heart. Ken Schrader, who saw Dale's final moments, rarely spoke about what happened. The memory was too painful. But out of this tragedy came important change. NASCAR finally made safety a top priority. For years, drivers had resisted wearing head restraints. After Dale's death, the Hans device became mandatory. This device helps protect the head and neck during crashes. Car seats were redesigned, stronger helmets were used, tracks added new barriers to absorb impact. NASCAR even changed how cars were built. Dale's death forced the sport to wake up. Because of those changes, many drivers survived crashes that would have been fatal years earlier. In a way, Dale Earnhardt saved lives by losing his legacy. Lives on in every safety rule, every stronger seatbelt, and every helmet. His story is a warning and a lesson. Racing will always be dangerous, but it doesn't have to be deadly. Dale taught the world that even the strongest heroes can fall, but they don't fall for nothing. His story brought people together. It showed the world what love, loyalty, and courage look like. He gave everything to the sport he loved, and in the end, he protected those he cared about the most. Dale Earnhardt may be gone, but he is never forgotten. His memory lives on in his fans, his family, and every driver who dares to race. Now, it's your turn. What do you remember most about Dale Earnhardt? What part of his story touched your heart the most? Let us know in the comments. Was it the crash, Teresa's quiet strength, Junior's sorrow, or the way the racing world changed forever? We want to hear from you, and if this video helped you understand Dale's story, please give it a like. Share it with someone who should know the truth. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories that matter. Dale Earnhardt may have left the track that day, but his legacy keeps racing forward every single lap.